A new bonus series has arrived on That Entrepreneur Show. There are tons of incredible podcast shows out there, and I am very excited to start shedding some light on new series, but especially for this series, as I've been lucky enough to be a guest on their show. I recently reconnected with Debbie and Barb at a celebration celebrating their podcast, The Business of Life Masterclass, hitting 100 episodes. Congratulations to them on another accomplishment, and I can't wait for the next 100 and to celebrate once again. As I mentioned, I consider myself very fortunate for having been on this show because of the value it provides everyone. It's a very unique show, so stay tuned to learn all about it. The podcast for successful people embracing every chance to accomplish and experience all they can in life and business. Every episode is 20 minutes or less, asking our podcast for the 4 questions each guest addresses. It's exciting to think about bringing people to you through the podcast. These dynamos and superstars are guests who have tackled their schedules, handled challenges, and they know when to say yes and they know when to say no. They are genuinely welcoming everything they have in their life and their business, and they share it all in these episodes on TBOL. This is the Business of Life podcast. Listen, choose, do. I'm excited to bring them both on, Debbie Lundberg and Barb Zant. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
You are welcome. Thanks for having us, Ben.
Thank you, Ben.
Of course. Can you please introduce yourself to everyone who does not know you like I do? And then we're going to dive all into your podcast talk.
I'm Barb Zant here, and media sales leader and founder of the lifestyle brand and blog, The Stay at Work Mom.
Thanks, Barb. And I'm Debbie Lundberg, and I am the founder and CEO of Presenting Powerfully, which is a national firm focusing on 4 services, which include keynotes and talks, strategy and facilitation, teaming and training, and then coaching and consulting. So as Barb and I say, it's all about how you present is how you are remembered. And that's a great way to launch into the podcast.
I love it. I am very excited. With that, I have to welcome everyone listening on back to another show on That Entrepreneur Show. My name is Vincent A. Lanci, and as you can tell by my voice, I am thrilled to be launching this new bonus series with 2 people I consider friends. If it is your first time joining us, thank you for stopping by. Each week since December 2019, I have interviewed the founder of a company or brand to share their journeys, their learning lessons, how they improved, and everything in between.
This segment is sponsored by Bedrock Business Builders, a small business startup specialist. Start, build, manage.
Of course, the first 2 bonus series are Gasparilla Overload and Rewind the Clock, but right now we're kicking off a brand new one. Debbie, would you mind starting us off telling more about the Business of Life Masterclass podcast?
Happy to. And a little bit about the show goes back to how it originated. Barb and I have known each other for about a decade, and we've had the opportunity to work on a few things. And while we were talking about something else that was a goal of Barb's, we talked about this podcast. And really, to Barb's credit, she mentioned about doing a podcast, and I said, and she asked me if I would want to ever do one. I said I would, but all of the background of it, all the technical side. And Barb said, I'd figure that out. And we decided to give ourselves 6 months, learn about podcasting, put it together. And I just had a couple of requests of Barb that if it could be less than 20 minutes, if we could ask the same questions of every single guest, and that if oddly and uniquely, we could have what I call a follow-through episode. And that's what Barb and I now call them, that for every guest who comes on and answers our 4 questions and gives us 18 minutes of their day, we listen, learn, and then we go implement them. And we have a follow-through episode, which we don't know of any others that do that. And so we really are here for inspiration, to learn ourselves, to share with our listeners, and to appreciate the ways that people live their lives differently, to listen, choose, and do, and think that we could incorporate them, and so could our listeners.
It's an incredible show. Everyone stick around to the end of the show. They will tell you exactly how to find it. And when I said it was unique, just like she said, there may not be any other podcast doing that. I love it. Barb, would you like to add anything?
It was a lot of fun researching how to launch a podcast. So it was almost 2 years ago. And so not as many people were doing it. And so, we were able to get some best practice and have a lot of fun with it. And we don't do edits. So, it's conversational in nature. And so if somebody messes up, if that happens in a conversation and how we talk, it's usually me. But we don't edit that out. It's a lot of fun.
I can definitely resonate with what you're saying. In the beginning of my podcasting experience, I put a ton of pressure on myself to build this perfect episode. I even did a presentation on it for Chris at Podfest. I have that video on my YouTube channel for everyone who wanted to check it out. But I included a screenshot of GarageBand, the editing software I use, where there was just cut after cut after cut. And even listening to those early episodes, it makes me cringe, but you have to enjoy the process. I love the growth I've seen with this show, and I'm honored to keep bringing on guests as great as the two of you. But you've mentioned you've been having a lot of fun with it. What are some of your favorite parts of podcasting?
My favorite parts of podcasting are just the inspiration that we get. I love doing podcasts on Mondays or Fridays because it's a great way to start out my week. And typically we'll have a guest on Monday, and then on Friday we'll do the follow through. And so it's, the 1-2 punch. I'm inspired by all the guests we bring on, and then I learn immediately on Monday and we implement throughout the week. And I love sharing what we've learned and just showing that listen, choose, do. The action part of it is instantaneous. That's my favorite.
Part of what's really enjoyable from the podcast perspective is really allowing people to share with such a broad audience what they do and works for them. Hopefully they are even inspired by themselves. I look at it as it's a short amount of time to give some opportunities for other people to say, I could do that in the morning, or this could be inspirational, or I could make this tweak or change. So one of the joys of podcast is the reach as well. We were shocked to find out that Brianna, who handles all of our technical aspects of uploading, shares, you're in the top 100 in Japan, or you're here. And it's just shocking and fun, as Barb mentioned. And the thought that somebody is willing to spend 18 minutes or so with us in their ear, getting to learn right alongside, is something that keeps us going.
You are both inspiring me to keep growing my shows and hit new international accomplishments. As they mentioned, they are a worldwide show, so be sure to stick around to the end of the episode to find out exactly where their show is. But we have now chatted about some of your favorite parts of podcasting. What areas do you find most challenging to help everyone listening on who may be in similar shoes?
Some of the more challenging parts of podcasting are really thinking about getting different views, because Barb and I have some similar circles and some similar thoughts. So we are challenged to keep asking our listeners and meeting new people, but we've made a commitment to our listeners, and a challenge we had at the beginning was saying, if somebody seems interesting, that'll be great. So it's been a challenge because we've had some people on who didn't listen to our show first. And what we realized was that was somewhat disrespectful to our listeners. And so we started asking them about the show and asking people to listen, not to get our numbers up, to make sure that there's a real connection, that what they would provide was something that our listeners wanted. So the challenge was being so excited at first, thinking somebody who was interesting to us would be interesting to everyone. And we wrongly thought that people would listen to the links that we send them. The other challenge, Vin, is people don't promote their own show. And we love promoting them and sharing that with them. And so we are in the process of disciplining ourselves to make sure that people who are on want to be promoted, want to do the promotion. We're writing now what they can put out there so that we take away any of the barriers, because even though ours isn't monetized and it is truly for inspiration, ultimately we want to share either a book that has a few of the most popular, or some master classes themselves. And we want them to be people who want to have that surrounding them. So we're making some changes in how we go about it in the first place, where at first it was all fun and exciting. And now it's about what feedback are we getting from our audiences and how can we serve them best?
Very well put. I can certainly relate to that as a fellow host. I'll send the link to some guests and then I won't hear back from them. But I would hope that people would like to reshare their amazing journeys, whether they share it on their personal pages or professional pages. I'd love to highlight all the amazing work each of my guests complete. Barb, would you like to add anything to that?
I would just say over the last couple of years with the pandemic and, some of our listeners changing habits when they listen to the podcast, we've had to pivot a bit on how we reach new people and changes with, Facebook and who sees, the marketing that we're doing. We just want to be able to reach as many people as possible. So the challenges with having people share and getting the message out so we can, really affect more lives and have people, take action as quick as possible and meet all of the wonderful rock stars that we've had on, over the past 2 years.
Your show really does improve lives, and I put it that way on my show too. You never know whose story is going to resonate with you the most. The little things that you do, where someone's from, their family life, where they went to college, or how they go about their day and succeed. And their show truly teaches people how to succeed. Think outside the box. We've had a great time talking all things podcast today. Debbie, what do you want to leave our audience with today?
Well, for your audience, thank you for listening. Number one, gratitude. And number two, encouragement as far as you set out with what you want to hear, who you want to surround yourself with, what you want to accomplish, because every aspect of what you as listeners are taking in is part of what you're going to accomplish. So being a part of it, I'm grateful. And I encourage each person to think about having grace with themselves and others and being kind any way they can.
Great words, and I am grateful for you as well. Debbie is like a 3 or 4 or 5-time person on all my shows. She's been with me since the beginning. Lucky enough to meet Barb along the way, recording at the Center Club, probably a year and a half at least ago, maybe 2. Barb, what would you like to end us off with?
Thank you again to all of our listeners for listening, and never stop learning. And, Vince, you have a couple great podcasts that teach and all of the tips that, our guests provide in less than 20 minutes. It is a life process. So continue to take in all you can and, learn.
The learning never stops unless you want it to. I am a firm believer in that. I am always trying to ask questions to learn from people who have done it before me. If college were free, I would also probably have 1,000 degrees on my wall. How can we find more about your incredible podcast, more about each of you?
So you can find our podcast pretty much anywhere. It's on 19 or 20 platforms now. So on any platform, Facebook and Instagram on the Business of Life Masterclass podcast. And you can find me on Instagram at the Stay at Work Mom.
And Barb is humble. The credit goes to Barb for getting us on all of those platforms, for figuring out all of this. So I do want to leave with that. I will happily share where you can reach me, but my gratitude for Barb and just love of our relationship and our partnership. But the credit goes to her for getting us in all of these places. I asked the guests and put some things together, and together we've really grown. So please, if you'd like that, follow us at those links, and you can find me, Debbie Lundberg, most everywhere on TikTok, Debbie Lundberg Coach, and on Facebook, Presenting Powerfully by Debbie Lundberg for workday tips and tools.
Thank you both once again for taking the time to kick off this new bonus series. Everyone listening on, thank you for continuing to support the show. Stay tuned for next Friday's new episode here on That Entrepreneur Show.